Morning, YouTubers. Back on the wrecker this morning. Sun's shining, weather's good. You got something to do in Ohio and the weather's nice, you need to take advantage of it. So that's where we're at. Last night, before it got too dark, I started on the control valves. This is the one, this wrecker has two control valves instead of one big one. This runs the winches, you can tell by the bigger ports, or the winch. And this is the cylinder for the up and down on the boom. This wrecker here does not have power out on the boom. You have to pull this T-handle and manually pull that boom out, which first one I ever had like that. Don't really like it, and I'll probably convert it at some point. But so that one runs that, and we'll come back to this valve. I'm going to show you something on it later. And that is the control valve for the wheel lift. Pretty simple, they're both just two spool valves. But we'll come back to control valves here in a minute. Okay, this is what I'm working with. This is how the return T looked that came off of it. This is literally corrosion right here. That's how bad this thing was rusted underneath on the old truck. And the old truck frame looks like this. I mean, it's shot. But then this is how the linkage between your handles and your control valve looked. First it was bubble gum chicken crap welded together, and as you can see, it's just about rusted in two. So there's the new T assembly for the return lines. Not a big deal. That one there's straight from Vietnam. Thanks, Menards. And then I made these little flat bars, and they'll be welded to a piece of adjustment rod, just about like this. Nothing elaborate, you just have to have a little adjustment in it, and then they'll be pinned onto the control valve like that. And your all thread will go right in here. Nothing real sophisticated, pretty easy. All right, this control valve wasn't too bad a shape. Right here's where your T goes for your return lines. That one there doesn't really need any work. But look at this, these ends of these spools. This is what we're dealing with here in Ohio. I don't know if you can see it or not, but this spool here actually has a hole rusted in it. That's daylight. So we caught that just in time. I'll turn it around here for you so you can see it. That thing should look like that. Okay, so you can't put a whole lot of heat on this. What I'll do is pull it out. This thing works in and out. That's how the valve works. I'll pull it out as far as I can and clamp it and MIG that up. And you have to be gentle with it. As you can see, there's nothing left. This one's starting to be that bad, but that one can be fixed. Just needs to be built up. And anyway, that's where we're at now on control valves. Two kinds. Most of the kind you're going to see on any continuous running pump is open center. That means on typically, let's say this was a, I don't know, just the boom setup. You'd have power coming in here. That's your pressure from your pump, and power is continually going through this thing and out back into the tank through the return line. Okay, these are nothing they call, when you buy a valve, it's one spool, two spool, four spool, whatever. That just basically interrupts the circuit of hydraulic flow, and when you pull the valve, it directs oil into this port or this port, depending on which way you actuate this plunger. It's called spool valve. That's why they call it one or two or three spools. And all that does is sends fluid under pressure under one of these instead of going out the control valve. And that's my neighbor. I don't think they're allowed to have exhaust systems on this road. I'm gonna have to cut all my shit off. Anyway, back to spool valves. They're pretty simple. They're spring loaded, usually self-centering is typically what you're going to see on this kind of application. And this one's higher flow, not necessarily in the spool valve, but if you was to put these and switch these fittings, it would literally slow down the winch. Okay, that is the volume of the oil. Anyway, now this valve is kind of unique because it has what's called power beyond. So this is the pressure coming in here, and you look, flow will actually come out this under pressure as well. So you basically have a T here. This, I can take this and T it however many times and power how many valves I want. So if I ever decide to make that boom power out, all I would have to do, right now this line goes from here directly to that port right there and powers that control valve for the wheel lift. But you could put a T in that and run whatever you wanted. You could put them quick connectors on the back of this truck and run any kind of equipment you wanted off of that one pump up there. The only thing that would happen, whatever you're running behind this would stop the minute you hit one of these control valve handles usually. Okay, so this could power another control valve, however many valves you wanted on it, and it would have another return line. So that's all you'd have to do is, you know, tee another return line into this so it can get back to the tank. So hope that helps you. Like I said, these are what they call open center, which means power goes through them all the time. You're typically going to see a closed center valve on something that's like a lift gate or electric dump bed. Usually something that as soon as the power is applied to the pump, it starts making pressure at the same time. Usually you see that on electric powered pumps. Okay, normally an engine powered pump, obviously the thing's sitting there running however many RPM. If you close that flow off, it's going to blow something up. So 99 times out of 100 on something like this industrial setting or mechanical stuff like this, you're going to see open center valves. So not a hydraulic expert, but built quite a few log splitters and wreckers and dump trucks and whatever in my life. I actually built a 4-wheel drive forklift one time. So I'm not new to it, but I'm not an expert. Be glad to help you with anything, any questions. If I can answer them for you, I would. Anyway, if you can get your hands on some of this stuff, hydraulic stuff basically lasts almost forever. The pumps, if you keep filters changed, clean oil in them, it lasts for a long time. This stuff here is off of like an 88 model wrecker, and there's nothing wrong with the valves. There's just, you know, rust is trying to eat it up. So that's what happens when you live in the salt belt. Look, difference between that and that, just salt. And this shit they're putting on the roads now, that brine. I used to be in charge of a bunch of trucks for a big retailer. I was the maintenance supervisor over all their trucks and forklifts and trailers. And that, what we call the green death, is where your taillights and wiring harnesses get corroded. Well, since they started using that brine on the roads in the state of Ohio especially, you can't keep wiring harnesses and fittings and couplers underneath of trucks anymore. It's a thing. So wheels, everything that's under the truck, if you can't get that shit washed off, which you're not going to, gets ate up. That's just a fact. And that stuff to me is way more corrosive than the old salt was, or at least seems to be. Didn't used to have all the trouble with brake lines and frames like we do today. Any given time, you can get on Marketplace or Craigslist and find a number of 10 or 15-year-old trucks or cars with all the brake lines shot or the frames rusted out. It didn't used to be that way. So that's all for now. I'll get this shit here straightened out and add more to it. It's a pretty day. Plan on getting something done. So please like and subscribe. Thank you.